Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us on the call today. This is a special podcast recording on behalf of the Caribbean Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons. We're doing this in collaboration with La Casita Hispanic Cultural Centre, one of the member organizations of the coalition. And as part of their 16 Days of Activism observance, they're having these beautiful recordings, really asking men to share from our hearts in response to certain questions that pertain to ending violence against women and girls. So we have with us four of the men from, well, apart from myself, three of the men from the leadership committee of the Caribbean Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons. And we'll be just asking each of them just to give a brief introduction of himself and then asking them to respond to the two questions that we've had posed by La Casita. So I will start with, I will start with Neil Bacchus. Hello, Neil. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hi, Adrian. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Well, I'm Neil Bacchus and I'm based in Guyana. I'm presently working with the Indigenous Peoples Commission, which is an agency that promotes and protects the rights of Indigenous people in Guyana. I'm also the secretary of the interreligious organization. I sit on several NGOs. And I'm married and I have a daughter who's 18 years of age.
I like that. Perfect, perfect, perfect. You are married and you have a daughter. So women, surround your life and obviously play an important role in your life. So Neil, tell us how have women influenced your life and what qualities do you value most in them?
Well, for me, when I reflect on my life and my interaction and where I am today, I can safely say, especially in the role of my mom to begin with, and then my wife, on December 19th of this year will be 20 years since we've been married. I can say that without my wife, my life couldn't be where it is today. Yes, she is an academic. She's from the academic fraternity. She works with the other office of Guyana. And while from a financial perspective, she played that role, both of us would have seen the importance of working together and not each outweighing each other in terms of putting ourselves to the extent of where we're able to build a life together. And, at times, you might say, okay, she's hard and she there's problems because of maybe your own little shortcoming. Sometimes you're coming home late from work or you have to go to my work takes me to the hinterland and so on. It's just because she cares. And this itself has helped me to always limit myself in terms of ensuring that in different places, I'm able to protect myself, and I respect the respect that she instilled in me for her, and generally has really, helped me to be a person where I'm very strong when it comes to family. Having a daughter also is very important because ultimately, I see myself that if you mistreat women or if you put yourself in a position to take advantage of them, then as a religious person, I believe that what goes wrong comes wrong. And ultimately, I don't want nothing to befall my daughter. Generally, my life prior to working with the Indigenous People Commission in Guyana here, I've spent almost my life around young people, especially teenagers moving into adult, because I've been in teaching mathematics at the 6th level, and I've seen children grow, and especially females. I always enjoy a very good relationship in terms of motivating them for higher things, to moving on to better things. And over the years, my life has really been trying to ensure that respect, love, and honor is there among people and generally our female counterparts. So I can say safely that where I stand as an individual, I am very happy to know that I have a very strong. I'm very strong when it comes to respect for women, especially my wife, my daughter, My mom is no longer with us, but ultimately, I can confidently say that indeed, they have played an integral role in terms of putting me into the perspective of where respect and honesty are.
Thanks so much, Neil. That's a really heartfelt response. I concur. The second question would be, what does it mean to you to be an ally in the protection and defense of women in your life, but also in society?
Well, from my perspective, and especially over the years, what I've been involved in my country, as I said, I've been a teacher, so I've always especially the institution I taught at was basically given an opportunity for students who didn't pass CXC maths especially would like to come back and get a second chance. So that motivated me to really put my best feet forward. And I believe in empowering young people so that they could, because they're the future of tomorrow. My work right now involves promoting, protecting the rights of indigenous people. So that itself is when it comes to not limiting yourself only to within your family or your community, but I'm more broad-based in terms of my work, and I take my work seriously as it relates to the protection and the rights of our indigenous brothers and sisters. Again, I mean, I have a very good personality. When I go there, and then the challenge is being a non-Indigenous person, working with Indigenous communities where they have their own culture and custom. For 13 years, since the commission was established, I was able to build good bridges and good relationship with our Indigenous brothers and sisters and females, especially. Think Sitting in the National Task Force here in Guyana also, majority of our victims are female, and I always ensure that my participation should ensure that at the end of the day, we do as much as possible to ensure that they're being protected, and whenever they're being saved or being rescued, we try put things in perspective that we should see the way through to ensure that they're fully integrated back in society. But overall, my life has always been caring and reaching out to others. And I'm happy to say that different things I've done, even from the religious perspective, even working with the Guyana Elections Commission for 30 years or so, majority of the people when we go and train, at least 80% of the party would be women generally. But aside from that, my interaction with people out there have always been for their benefit in terms of their rights. And I always put myself in a position where if I can be of help to people, I help them. So my life is not only limited only to what I do, but also it's more broad based, and I see myself moving on, keeping this pace here until such time, because there's so much you can do, and I do not see men and women as I see women and women basically as equal, and I always advocate for women's rights when it comes to, ensuring that they be treated with respect, and also given the same opportunity as men.
So much, Neil. I really appreciate your participation. I know that you have to jump off now, but we really thank you for taking the time to jump in and really share these perspectives. I think some of our colleagues have been nodding, so there's a lot of concurrence across the board. So thanks again, Neil. I'll reach out now to Jason. If you would unmute, that would be awesome.
Hi, Adrian, and thank you very much for having me this afternoon. My name is Jason Haynes. I am from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I am married to a Barbadian, and I live in the United Kingdom, in the city of Oxford at the moment, but I work at the University of Birmingham as an associate professor. I am a lawyer by profession, although I haven't practiced much at all. In my previous life, I worked at the British High Commission as their senior legal officer in Bridgetown, Barbados. And I am particularly keen on not only the academy, but also sports. So I play cricket for a club here in Oxford and previously at several of the other universities that I previously attended. And if I weren't a lawyer, I'd probably be a cricketer.
So, and I think the West Indies cricket team definitely would need you. Oh
Indeed.
man, thanks so much, Jason. So, the safety questions. I know as we're observing the 16 days of activism, I'm sure there are lots of activities taking place there in the UK as well. But from your perspective, how have women influenced your life and what qualities do you value most in them?
That's a wonderful question. So I think for me, women's influence has been profound in so many ways. So I'm the product of a single parent family. My mother bore the brunt of responsibility in raising me over many years until I became independent. And therefore, she, of course, had the greatest impact on my life. Um, so my mom made tremendous sacrifices to get me to where I am. She worked a poultry job doing manual labor, cleaning at the Central Market in Kingstown for many years. She unfortunately hadn't had the opportunity to be educated because she had been born with a disability that restricted her mobility. And at the time, we had been living in a very mountainous area of St. Vincent, and so she couldn't access education. And as you might imagine, not having education invariably impacts upon your prospects, your financial and other prospects, your job prospects. And so it was only when she was 26 years old that she had gotten surgery that was required for her to get back her mobility. And in that context, she started working from 26 years old. So no formal education. But I think what stood out for me, particularly growing up, is that I never quite realized that she didn't have formal education because coming home from school, she would always check my book. She would always be asking what I was doing and how I was doing and the problems I was having at school and the challenges and so forth, and was prepared to provide just kind of general guidance to get me to where I needed to be. And so for me, I think what stands out as a particular acute memory was that there was a time, well, I was writing common entrance a couple of years back, and we hadn't had money. And she put her pride on the line. She went into the market where she had been working and she went up to this lady who had been selling at the time, and she was just like, my son has common entrance today and he doesn't have a meal. Can you offer him something? And the lady did. And I ended up doing common entrance and doing fairly well. And then going on to secondary school, not having school fees to pay. Um, Even though I mean I went to a private secondary school. She didn't suggest to me at any point that my options were limited simply because we couldn't afford to pay for a private secondary school. She was just like, you did well enough to get into that school. You should go and you should do your best. And she sought out various opportunities for me to get funding and so forth. So for me, the influence lies in the fact that she was incredibly unselfish. Um, Whatever she had was mine, in the sense that if it was a last cent, she would give it to me so that I can have lunch or I could be able to pay transportation to get to school. And I owe a tremendous debt of gratitude for my mother and the sacrifice that she's made. And so to my grandmother, because when my mother had been working for the first couple of or several years, it was my grandmother who had been going out and doing, manual work in order to supply the needs of the family. And so that has ingrained in me a strong sense of humility. But beyond humility, I think it has ingrained in me a strong sense of working hard, being committed, being disciplined, being the type of person who respects women and the sacrifices that they make. And I think I'm better for it. Of course, I would have preferred that life were easier for my mother and for the other women in my life, but the exigencies of life are just that. But I think that, post all of that experience, I have a deep appreciation for women and the sacrifices that they make. And as such, in whatever way possible, I try to assist my mom, try to make sure that she's comfortable and is living her best life in her later years. My wife too has been a tremendous influence. She is a talented academic, but also more than an academic, a person of integrity, a person who is not afraid to hold me accountable, a person who is incredibly wise beyond her years, and who takes risks. When the idea of coming to England to work came up, I raised it with her initially, expecting her not to necessarily support that idea because she had been in a very good job, earning well with family in Barbados. And she was just like, yeah, if this is something that you want to do, I'll support you. And, she made the commitment and came over here. And then we were living in two different cities for a bit, because she was working here in Oxford, and I was in Birmingham. So we had our main home in Birmingham, and she was renting for the winter period at the very least, in Oxford, and then commuting for 4 hours a day for those 2 years. I know the tables have turned and I'm doing the commuting now, but I'm incredibly grateful for the sacrifice that she's made in that respect. And then just kind of in response to the second part of the question about the I believe the qualities that I value most, I would say self-sacrifice, commitment. I would also say the sense of hard work and discipline, faith. Um, much of my uh, perspective on life, my ideologies are influenced by my mother's faith and her deep commitment to God. And I think that is a wonderful trait and a quality that you would find in most women, certainly in the Caribbean as well.
I wholeheartedly agree. That is a powerful account of your mom and how she raised you, really selfless. Thanks so much for sharing that, Jason. Second question would be similar to what I asked Neil in terms of what does it mean to you to be an ally in the protection and defense of women, not only in your life, but also in society?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you might imagine, women are among the most vulnerable in society, and not necessarily on account of anything that is inherently um, self-limited related to women and their existence, but because we as a society have been constructed on premises that are oftentimes flawed, premises of male superiority, patriarchy, exploitation of vulnerability. And so, in that respect, I've dedicated most of my academic life to date and my certainly professional life to sort of rebalancing those asymmetries which exist and which adversely, in fact, affect women, both in my life, but I think women generally speaking. So, for example, in relation to trafficking, we know that a significant majority of women in many contexts are the primary victims or at least vulnerable to being trafficked. And a lot of my research, a lot of my advocacy has been around ensuring protection mechanisms for these women such that they are not subject to exploitation. Beyond that, I have been particularly keen on enhancing the lives of women, in particular with disabilities. I worked with the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Barbados's government as well to draft legislation on the rights of persons with disabilities broadly, but more specifically, it would have, I think, a significant impact on the lives of women with disabilities. I've done some work on protocols for stakeholders that engage with children who come in contact with the justice system. Girl children are in particular very vulnerable in our society, particularly to sexual abuse and sexual assault. Oftentimes, also, even when they are the perpetrators of crime, the facilities in which they are housed are not at an appropriate standard. And a lot of my advocacy has been around bringing those facilities, those processes, those procedures that are in place to an appropriate standard and offering rehabilitation and related forms of support for these individuals. So I think being an ally essentially means standing up for the voiceless. It means making and taking uncomfortable positions and stances, which probably go against the grain. If it means that you act in support of and in defense of vulnerable individuals in society, but more generally speaking, even if the women and girls in your life are not vulnerable, to the extent that you have a role to play as a scholar, as an activist, as a human being. You should be looking out for others and indeed being your brother's keeper. So I think in that context, we as men have a tremendous role to play in challenging systems, especially structural systems, patriarchy and discrimination and exclusion, which have traditionally had an adverse impact on women and their role in society.
Thank you so much, Jason. Well put, well put. And now we come to Mr. Smith Maxime. How are you, Smith?
Hi, Adrian. I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you so much for having me and giving us this opportunity to share our insight.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please, Smith.
Oh, very simple. As you said, I'm Smith Maxime, an Asian national, currently based in the US. And the best way to describe me, I would say that I am an activist in the anti-modern slavery movement.
Someone I look up to very much. Thank you so much, Smith. Tell us a little bit about your own experience, even as we ask the other gentleman the question, how have women influenced your life and what qualities do you value most in them?
Yeah, this is an important question. Women for me are role model. And I would take two historic figures. The first one is Sanit Belair. Sanit Belair was in the Haitian army to fight for independence. And then we are still celebrating her name as a hero. The second woman is Harriet Tubman in the US, fighting slavery in the US. And those two figures, I celebrate their courage. At this time, taking the leadership, be part of the army, showing the way to change societies. I think those is so important. The second I could say about influence is on me personally now is the feminist movement. The way this movement is fighting to change gender norms in societies, how women can change themselves and also change the societies. And then where we can live, where we can balance the power between men and women. Those as an ideology, the feminist movement is really impactful in the way I see women and the way I see societies. And the third one is that the way I receive care, love, and attention, this is extraordinary. I receive it first from my mom, raised by beautiful women, having a sister, having my wife, having my daughters. The quality of care, love, and attention, this is so impactful for your mental health, for your daily life. When you have women in your life, you enjoy it. Those kind of, in the way I treat people, and in the way I care about people, and the way I love them, I pay attention to them. I should say that I get that from women, get that from my mom, my aunts, those kind of women I'm surrounded by, they influence my life in this way.
I am so inspired right now. Honestly, I am so because I can identify with everything that you just said.
Mm.
And so beautifully put. And of course, with those inspirations, um, what does it mean to you to be an ally in the protection and defense of women, the wonderful women in your life, but also women in the wider society?
For me, being alive, it is protect myself. It is first of all protect myself. Imagine a situation where we have no women on earth. What what we would do? This means that we are protecting ourselves. Imagine the role the social role women are playing every day to make things happening in the family, make things happening in the society, and at any level of your life, you see the presence of women. This means that you are protecting your life when you are protecting women. And the second is that we are protecting nature. You know, if there is no women on earth, I don't know if God would do something else, but now you cannot renew the generation without women because we cannot give birth. That's not we are protecting nature when we are protecting women. I also in most societies, women make up the majority of the population. This means when you are protecting women, you enjoy the full potential of the majority of the society. And they are part of they are creating, they are innovating. And in that you have a full potential and then you are enjoyed. Is it for as a human rights activist? If you are a human rights activist, that's when you are protecting human and women as human, we are protecting them. And in my everyday work, I am with women, specifically in the movement to end human trafficking, working with survivors. And I have most of my experiences based in Haiti, where the 2/3 of victims of child servitude, they are women, girls, and after that, women. And now my work now is working with them to organize them, to make their voice heard, and then to get what they lost on their life, they can enjoy it, and part of the rehabilitation process in societies. And the work we are doing in the Caribbean, we know most of the victims of sex work, they are women in the Caribbean. And this engage in this movement to end human trafficking in the Caribbean, we are protecting women in our everyday life. I don't want to talk too much, but I think in this simple way, protect ourselves, we are protecting women.
Awesome. I love how you put that. I love how you put that. Thanks so much, Smith. For me, I think looking at the questions, it's already evoking a lot of different emotions in me because for me, one of the women who has had the greatest influence in my life is my grandmother, and she's no longer with us, and we were really, really close. But there's so many things I learned from her and from my mom and from my sister, who my sister literally saved my life as a child. So I have derived, tremendous respect and regard and appreciation because as you guys have said, without women, we would not be here, and our quality of life would be far removed from what it is today, right? So I think the same qualities of courage and reliability and compassion and care and that attention to detail that they have, that, I mean, is unmatched. It is unmatched. And perseverance. I think a lot of what we talk about in the midst of things like 16 Days of Activism and intimate partner violence and domestic violence and so on. I grew up in that type of environment, as a lot of us have in the Caribbean, and the perseverance, the resilience of women is something I will never cease to admire. In terms of like being an ally, I think coming from that background predisposes you to make a choice, either be a perpetrator or be an ally to prevent what you saw growing up. And again, because of my mom, I'm on the road to being an ally. And I think there's where there's so much that we can draw from, right? Firstly, listening and learning rather than assuming we know how to be the best ally. I think people need to share with you and tell you how they want you to serve as an ally. Otherwise, we make all of these erroneous assumptions and we take power from people rather than, further empowering or strengthening them as they determine. So I think a lot of work that we do comes from that desire not to see a repetition or an in perpetuity repetition of what is toxic, So doing prison ministry for me had some sort of connection to that. How can I help men and boys who may be in conflict with the law see life through a different lens? Some of them may have had similar upbringings to myself. I thank God that at a certain point in their lives, both of my parents came to faith in Christ Jesus, and the violence and the arguments and they talk about divorce, that just ended. That just ended. So I've been able to see both sides and therefore to share with people what is possible, that this doesn't have to be the end result of your life as a male, to continue to practice what you would have seen, which was unhealthy. And of course, how to encourage people to strive for much more healthy relationships and have equal space, talking to men and especially young fathers and encouraging them to be a father. You may not have had that, or you may not have had an involved father in your life, but be who you didn't have. Find that solution. And it may be just opening up and being transparent to other men who can be there to help you. But don't put all of the pressure of raising your children on their mother, So it's just different ways. And I think it's constantly evolving as, again, listening, learning, connecting, and finding out how do you wish me to help you, because you know better than I do, right? And positioning ourselves just to be there and to have a hope for a better, in my case, Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, but I think a more compassionate, trauma-informed world. I think it's possible. I think it's possible. And a lot of that compassion, examples of that, definitely I draw from the women in my life. So thanks so much, guys.
This is powerful.
It is. And they say men don't talk. We do. And these are powerful questions. So really kudos to Andrina and the team at La Casita Hispanic Cultural Centre, and really thanking her and the other members of the leadership committee, the amazing women of our leadership committee, whether they are have backgrounds in they work with the state, or they're in private practice as attorneys, or they are from the social work background, or they are survivors, or they are consultants, they are academics. Amazing, amazing, amazing women in the Caribbean Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons, and it's an honor to serve alongside them. It really is. Any closing words, guys?
Just to say thank you, and it is an opportunity to be part of the movement to protect women's rights.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mary. Jason?
Indeed, I'm very grateful as well for the opportunity, and let's continue fighting the fight. I think that we have to move away from being just performative and very symbolic in terms of, once a year we have these activities and there's a great celebration and great awareness, to having this be a way of life where women are appreciated, where women are treated with dignity and respect. I think when we get there as a society, when that is normalized, then we'll have a better function in society.
Awesome. So agree with that, Jason. And Neil may not be in a position to join us for any parting words, but he shared beautifully in terms of his relationship with his wife and his daughter and his own desire to be an ally. So guys, until we meet again, right? Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon or evening, as the case may be. And thanks so much for joining us. Take it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.